Super excited to be a part of the discussion and meet everybody. My name is Taylor Stockton. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of FutureFit AI. I think like many of the startups, we are cross-industry, but we do quite a bit of thinking around the insurance industry. And so super excited to be a part of this discussion. Maybe just as a little framing up front, I think probably like many of you on this Zoom call, we see new future of work headlines and predictions every single day about the insurance industry, whether it's talking about what new skills are employees going to need for digital underwriting, or what roles are going to shrink or grow as claims adjudication is increasingly automated, or what the workforce implications are as insurance customers demand more digital communication and service delivery. And so I think that how we've approached the space is, regardless of which of those predictions you believe, where there is universal agreement is that there's going to have to be hundreds of millions of more career transitions. And so our approach from the beginning has been, how can we create an AI-powered tool for workers to really help them navigate every stage of that career transition journey? And so in relation to a lot of what HR leaders and talent leaders are thinking about in the HR space, I think what we hear a lot is that leaders are trying to think through strategic workforce planning of what are the skills and competencies that I have in my organization right now. But then as I look at that 3-year plan or 5-year plan, what are those skills and competencies that I'm going to need then? And what is that gap between current and future state? And what are the types of levers that I have at my disposal as an HR leader to be able to actually create that future workforce, right? And so there's the option of recruiting new talent and skills into the organization. There's the option of using your LMS or your LXP to say, how do we take people in their current careers and just incrementally allow them to gain new skills that are going to be important for the future workforce? But then there's this third bucket of really thinking through full-scale career transitions that are going to need to happen as you think about the populations and roles that might not be needed in their current structure as they are today. And so what FutureFit AI helps partners do is really think about, how do you actually redeploy workers to other parts of the business, some of which could be an alternative to recruiting new talent that can be done in a more effective and more cost-efficient way. But then also actually thinking about external transitions as well. I think especially during the pandemic, what we saw a lot is that layoffs are happening more and more, but there's also an increased transparency and public scrutiny around the negative impact that layoffs have on individuals, both those let go, but also those that remain at the company, and just their engagement to the values of the company itself. And so what we're also helping companies do in that same exercise is thinking about, if we do have to offboard certain roles, how can we reimagine that process to make sure that our values are showing through, that we've been expressing at every other stage of the employee lifecycle? And how can we use it as an opportunity to make sure from a brand perception standpoint, from a legal risk and litigation standpoint, that we're not kind of further damaging ourselves in that process if we do have to make certain external transitions. And then maybe a couple other things that I'll say just about the model that FutureFit AI has. From a user journey standpoint, we really try to be this GPS for your career for the individual, whether they are making an internal transition within the company or an external transition. And so what that GPS looks like from that user journey standpoint is trying to say, where are they starting from? How can we use AI and resume parsing assessments to really understand what are the skills this employee has, what are their interests and passions? And then secondly, taking that input data and saying, what might be the best set of career recommendations within the company, or again, externally, if it's an external use case, that they would be best fit for. And then crucially, how do we use a set of data points that we have around what set of reskilling programs, what set of resources, what set of human coaching and guidance is going to best get them from point A to point B. And then maybe just the last slide that I'll share, and then I'll pause for any questions that people have, is just to say that we have taken a really strong data and AI heavy approach to a lot of these questions. And so we've mapped about 20 different public and private data sources and come up with some really interesting buckets of data and algorithms that allow us to say, for any given individual who is a claims adjuster in Cincinnati, Ohio, what are the set of possible career transitions that we've seen in our database, which is talent profiles of, I believe, 350 million different talent profiles that we've analyzed. And so we're able to tell them, here are the most likely career paths and the most likely reskilling programs that we've seen others succeed in, that we can help them along those similar pathways. So a lot to fit in a quick 5-minute overview, but I'll pause there and happy to answer any questions that people have.
Perfect, Taylor. Well, thanks so much. Do have a few questions here. So FutureFit is used for internal transitions where the value prop for employers is pretty clear, and for external transitions to support employees during layoffs. But why are companies choosing to do that, and how are they thinking about the ROI calculation from there?
Yeah, it's a great question, Rachel. I think I would answer it in a couple different ways. One is that a lot of companies already have existing outplacement budget that they have allocated. And I think what they found is that a resume review and a coaching call is not actually, in this kind of fast moving world of work, enough to really support someone into their next role with a soft landing. And so a lot of companies are just reallocating existing budget. And then from an ROI standpoint, I think they're both thinking about the human element of how, if we show our values at every stage of the employee lifecycle, does that benefit us in terms of attracting and retaining future employees, but also really thinking about the litigation risk side and thinking about how do we set up our workforce for the future.
Right, absolutely. And we do have about a minute. So something that actually popped up in our fireside chat, but you guys are using AI to help expose people to career pathways. Is there any risk bias in doing that? And how are you thinking of AI as it pertains to DE&I?
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic question and one that we've thought extremely intentionally about from the very beginning, because I think there is a risk whenever you use technology and AI that unless you are extremely attentional from the very beginning, that you could perpetuate existing biases in the labor market. And I think if you look at the demographics of people who are sometimes impacted by some of these workforce shifts, they are kind of disproportionately impacting people of color and other groups. And so what we've done is both from the AI perspective, making sure that pathways are not just mapped of what have people like me done before, but truly trying to deeply understand skills at a very, very granular level to say what might be possible, what pathways could be possible from a potential standpoint, even if we haven't seen those pathways before in the labor market. So I think there's an AI piece. And then just the last thing I'll say is that when you think about the targeted set of reskilling and supports that people need, when we think about those different demographics that are impacted, we developed a targeted set of partnerships that specifically support people from some of those groups. And so we think that's a huge part of outcome success as well.